The Fed had hoped that companies would put all that borrowed money to good use and invest in their workforce and their infrastructure. But in reality, it was playing out differently.
Buybacks.
Buying back stock.
Stock buybacks.
Stock buybacks.
Companies were often borrowing money to buy back their own stock, making the remaining shares more valuable and the prices higher.
As a corporation, you realize all that matters is the stock price. So what do we have to do to increase the stock price? And more often that is buying back the stock.
Financial reporter Dion Rabowen covered the growing trend.
So it used to be the Fed would lower interest rates, businesses would then take on more debt, they would use that debt to hire more workers, build more machines and more factories. Now what happens is the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates, businesses use that to go out and borrow more money, but they use that money to buy back stock and invest in technology that will eliminate workers and reduce employee headcounts. They use that money to give the CEO and other corporate officers big bonuses, and then eventually issue more debt and buy back more stock. So it's this endless cycle of things that are designed to increase the stock price rather than improve the actual company.
GE just authorized a $50 billion stock buyback.
The numbers were astounding. More than $6 trillion in corporate buybacks in the decade after the financial crisis.
Warren Buffett likes Apple's buybacks.
Well, why wouldn't he? He's a shareholder and you're buying back $100 billion in stock.
Buybacks it's just another example of things that used to be viewed as kind of, just going mainstream.
Sheila Bair, a former top banking regulator, was issuing public warnings at the time that the Fed was incentivizing bad behavior on Wall Street, despite its best intentions.
I can't fault the company so much because this interest rate environment creates very strong economic incentives to do exactly what they're doing. It's hard to create a new product. It's hard to come up with a new idea for a service. It's hard to build a plant and hire people and run the organization. It's real easy to issue some debt and pay it out to your shareholders to goose your share price. That's real easy to do, but it doesn't create real wealth. It doesn't create real opportunity. It doesn't create jobs. It doesn't improve the labor market. But it's just another example of how these very low interest rates have really distorted economic activity and frankly been a drag on our economic growth, not a benefit.
See, like I always say, you're not going to get around me with the money. You tell me what feminism has to do with the fact that they don't want to pay people. You tell me what political party you want to affiliate has to do with the fact that they don't want to pay people. You tell me what the wokety woke left LGBT has to do with the fact that they don't want to pay people. The man just laid it out in the video. They lowest interest rates. And what companies are supposed to do is they're supposed to expand their business, research and development, hire new people, right? That's what they're supposed to do. That's what the government says they're trying to incentivize. But all the companies do is basically buy their stocks back, possibly restructure things, pay executives bonuses, right? Find ways. We've all seen every time we go out to some of these, chains, these fast food chains. That's what's so funny about people throwing up, get a job at McDonald's, do something, right? And you see the kiosk when you walk in there. You go to Wawa, they got the kiosk. You go to McDonald's, they got the kiosk. You go to the supermarket, now they have self-checkout. Basically, what I see is this is just going to keep going, keep continuing until the wheels fall off, until the shit actually breaks. You don't have, you got too much poverty. You don't have enough intact homes. And then, there's riots in the street, revolution. People are demanding they do something. And then the companies and the corporations, they got to put up the guardrails, the regulations. They're going to be forced to operate a certain way. And from a political standpoint, what I see, even though I think that, both parties are essentially, two different sides of the same coin, but I know that you're going to have, the conservatives, the Republicans, the Candace Owens that are going be staunch defenders of trickle-down economics. And the stupid thing is most of your working class white folks will be right there because of, the racial bias that they have in their head every time we bring up money and wages and jobs and economic opportunities. It's like they want to be the only ones making money. Anytime you start talking about, people making more money in relationship to their relationship with companies and corporations, they in their mind have this idea that that money's going to minorities that don't deserve it or something like that, some concept of that. And so even though you got this blue collar white guy, who only makes maybe $54,000 a year, which is slightly above the average, and he's got 2 kids he's got to take care of, he's not going to join forces and form Voltron with the black guy he looks down upon, from an economic standpoint, not realizing they're in the same boat. I'm like, dude, you barely making it. 2 kids? I'm like, yeah, man, you barely making it. You got to support them. You barely making it. But they'll believe all this BS, in on that, conservative train of personal responsibility, and we gotta bring the sweet twinkle of white Jesus, it back into the White House, and it's about morality and this, that, and the third. I don't want to hear anything about trickle down economics because it's bullshit. And I don't want to hear anything about, why are families, there's this societal social decay, and it's social media, and it's all these other things, and it's the fact that we took Christ out of the schools, we took prayer out of the school. Bullshit. That's not the root of it. The fact of the matter is they don't want to pay people. If you're not making money, you're not going to have a proper foundation. Everything, and this is the part that gets me about, especially Christians. Everything that y'all want to do, that you want to say is, out of the moral goodness of your heart, is tied to money, because actions require money, right? I can't be generous unless I actually have money. I may want to be generous, but unless I actually have money, I can't be generous. I can't go out there and be like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, unless I got it like that. You see? So it's just people can't get out of their own way. If you want to make companies and corporations not paying you, if you want to defend the companies and the corporations, if you want to say, and again, we're not talking small businesses here. Small business, the dynamic is, marginally different. But publicly traded companies, it's all about the stock price. It's all about the stock price. You're just a number. And they'll do anything and everything they have to do to get the stock price up. And the primary way that they get their stock price up is anytime there's an economic downturn and they lower interest rates, they go and buy back their stocks, which means that the remaining shares will go up in price because there's so few of them. And it's a way of artificially inflating the stock price. And not only that, making when it comes to even the employees, and when they do these massive layoffs, they'll say, oh, this quarter, we either stayed the same or we turned a profit, when they didn't actually turn a profit. It's just it's like you laid off 5,000 employees. You didn't make a profit. That's just showing all the money that didn't go out the door. You cut your cost. That's what you did. So the company didn't make a profit, but since they bought their stocks back and there's less shares that are actually out there and available to be purchased, and they cut employees, right? The stocks are going to go even higher, and that's all they care about. And until the American people Again, I don't care what your race is. I don't care what your favorite color is. Until the American people wise up and get educated on how these things actually work, how the process, how business actually works, how corporations actually do things. Every time they go to the polls, they're going to be going to the polls and voting, for some stupid reasons that have nothing to do with how things actually function. It's the same thing when I talk about, whether it's reparations or the ways in which black people are affected and CRT, and you got white people that they don't know what redlining is. They don't know what blockbusting is. They don't know what eminent domain was. They don't know what urban renewal was and how that busted up the black community. They don't know what COINTELPRO was with the FBI, right? They don't know what the Iran Contras, which is what essentially created the gangster street drug dealing culture that exists in the black community today by dumping drugs in the black community, right? They don't know enough about history. They don't know about the denial of FHA loans. They don't know about the advantages that white people specifically got that black people were excluded from. So when you're ignorant of that sort of information, and then when people go enter conversations, you know what I mean? They're coming into the conversation from an intellectual deficit. Well, I think it's black culture. Yeah, black culture predicated on prolonged exposure to poverty due to the racist policies that it made sure that they didn't have access to economic opportunities, capital, and vehicles of wealth like property. I'm like, putting a group of people in that situation, you're not going to get the same outcome as the group of people that are members of the dominant society that have all of these structural and institutional benefits. But again, if you don't know these things, you're going to come to the conversation, you're going to come to the argument shouting and screaming that it's about personal responsibility and whether you got the sweet twinkle of white Jesus in your eye. And that's how you're going to structure your arguments. And again, going back, the same thing applies to corporations and how they function and what they actually do when interest rates drop. They don't hire more people. They buy back their stocks. And then they tell you, oh, if you raise, what we have to pay employees, even though we just gave this CEO, a $10 million bonus, oh, we can't afford that. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And I don't even think the government knows how to do that because, again, there's too many ways that corporations, just like people online do, with the when you go on social media and you see these videos on Instagram that are like, don't do this, put your money in a trust, because capital gains will get you here, and make sure you do this, and make sure you get an LLC, and then get your EIN number, and then go and do this, and don't put anything in your name, right? That is the same thing, but it's on the corporate side because those avenues are there. So the bottom line is all of this would have to be restructured to go back to a model where, companies are able to borrow more money and then they invest in themselves to make new products and all that. It has to be streamlined to make that process easier, but that's not what's being done. What we have is a system, an economy that is nothing more than a mirage of profits. It's not real. It's not tangible. And so as a result, when you get down to the societal level, you have, less people owning property, less people owning homes. That whole concept of the nuclear family that everybody has from the Wonder Years, that's fading. Yeah, you could throw up, feminism and the gender war and stuff like that. Yeah, you could throw that up. Yeah, those are absolute problems. You know my stance on that. Women wanting the power of men, the privileges of women, and the responsibilities of neither. That is a problem. It disincentivizes men to wanting to get married when you see guys going through court and losing custody of their kids, and the woman taking, all, the whole property, or them having to sell all that stuff. Yeah, that disincentivizes men from being productive. But that doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, you're going to have a societal decline when you're not paying men to be gainfully employed and support the very foundations that people say that they want to see from a moral standpoint. As I said before, it's like the Titanic. A man being gainfully employed, that the job, the economic opportunity that he has, that's the Titanic. And he comes across an iceberg, loses his job. Yeah, that's 5 compartments. Well, what about religion? Religion only buys you time, minutes at best. At the end of the day, without the money, everything is going to collapse. And I know there's people that don't want to believe that. I know there's people that want to say, "Oh, well, you can be poor and have nothing, and you should still be able to garner respect from your wife and your children." I don't even know why white guys even try that shit, because they damn sure know that shit doesn't work for them. But then they try to tell a bunch of black men that shit. It's bullshit. And I'm telling you, it really isn't going to change until white men get over their racist bullshit. It's not black people. Black people don't have that hang up. Like I said before, if black person feels some type of way about a white person, it's because of the response to racism. Black people don't have a racial superiority complex. There's no historical context to back that up. But white people, they do. And they haven't gotten over it. And just like Stokely Carmichael pointed out with that, Communist Auto Workers Party video that I can't find on YouTube anymore. He's pointed that out. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, look, we trying to make it so that everybody makes more money in the plant. But, they're like, you ask them, what's the biggest problem? They'll tell you, it's the niggas, as opposed to the fat cats on Wall Street, who are making all the decisions in determining, what's going on, with their livelihood. So as long as that continues, black people, we just here for the ride, basically. White people make up 75% of the country. We make up 13% of the country. So if we can't get at least, a 60% of the white people on board to understand how this situation works economically, we're just along for the ride, but again, those that are, in my opinion, for the corporations and their interests, they'll use whatever smokescreen they got to use in order to keep the vast majority of white people distracted, whether that's race, whether that's gender, whether that's, ethnic minority, whatever it is. It's always got to be the other. That's what the problem is. It's Mexicans coming across the border. What do Mexicans coming across the border have to do with corporations buying back their stocks as opposed to hiring more people when they lower interest rates? I'll wait. If bottom line is just going to get worse. It's going to get worse because, as I said when I came online, even just talking about the gender war, I'm like, how can you hope to fix a problem if you can't even identify the root of it? You don't even want to be honest about what is actually going on. And that's the whole problem with the way that the internet works now, and the way that, people are just coming at each other with these talking points. And it's like, that's not how this shit works. Again, like I've always said, you're not going to get around me with the money. All you got to do is follow the money. Forget everything else. Follow the money. At the end of the day, they don't want to pay people. And be it the fact that I know what money can actually do for a man, for a family, for a community, for a society, right? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to a society, the family is the fundamental unit of the society. It's actually the fundamental unit of a community. And then translated, that's the fundamental unit of a society. If you start breaking down the fundamental unit of the family to the point that you can't have, this intact, cohesive, family unit where basic needs are being met, you're going to have a problem at the society level. I don't know what type of math y'all are doing when it comes to, well, why is this way? Why is this that? Okay, well, let's go down to the family structure. What's going on in the family structure? Right? And to hell with these people that keep wanting to push the idea again of religion trumps all, and that despite a man not having the resources to provide for a family, that somehow that family is supposed to be magically intact. That's not going to happen. And again, if people don't want to face this reality, well, get carjacked, get home invaded, get robbed. You know what I mean? I suggest you go out there and exercise your Second Amendment, because you will be shooting back every day as things get progressively worse. It's not going to affect, it affects the people at the bottom first. It's not going to affect the people living in the suburbs. It's not going to affect the people with the nice little nest egg yet. But it's going to spill. It's going to spread like the flood in Halo. Oh, we're over here. We're good. It's not going to affect us. Yeah, eventually it will. As I've stated when I first came online, the black community is the canary in the coal mine. What you see happening in the black community will eventually happen in the white community. I mean, name whatever you want to point to. Black people were initially making less money. Now white people are making less money, right? Black people, had a high rate of kids out of wedlock. Now white women got a high rate of kids out of wedlock, right? Or white people got a high rate of kids out of wedlock, right? Black people had, we used to have some of the highest marriage rates. Then it went to some of the lowest, marriage rates during deindustrialization and the welfare state. And now what do you see in the white community? You see the rise of single motherhood. You see the decline of marriage. So anytime if the black community, I'll just put it to you this way. If just based on the inequality in America, and I'm saying if the black community by any standard of measure was doing awesome, then white people are doing stellar. I mean, it's just that simple. But if black people are struggling, white people ain't much further behind us in that regard, even though they don't like to think that they are. I'm like, oh, it's coming. It's coming. And now you got people like Undead Chronic, up there. Now you got white guys talking about if it's going to be my work and my bootstraps, your heads would be, what did he say? There'd be heads on sticks in front of the White House by the end of the week. Oh, is that white men advocating for violence? Oh, you mean to tell me if things get bad enough that white men are going to commit acts of violence? What happened to Christian moral principles? Right? What happened to you shouldn't do that? And notice, like I said, a long time ago, it's so funny. You start screwing with white men, give me liberty or give me death. The tree of liberty must be refreshed with blood. What is it? Tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Right? Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. Oh, they're ready to go. But when it comes to black people, oh, you better not. You better, turn the other cheek. Right? I mean, what is the difference between saying we're going to have heads on a stick by the end of the week in front of the Capitol, if it just came down to my work and my bootstraps, thinking that white men are going to tolerate being the white elite's slaves, and young black teenagers that go out there and say, fuck it, I got to get it how I can get it. And they go out there, you know, carjack, rob, steal, home invade, and everything else. What is the difference? They're both violent. They're both acts of violence. It's just white men think that they're, you know, always more righteous and more sanctimonious in their approach to violence. It's the only difference. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say. I mean, I'm like, that video spelled it out. But if everybody just wants to be an idiot about it, if everybody wants to be stupid about it, well, you know, as Rich Cooper, you know, said, you know, enjoy the decline. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.